In the ever-evolving story of the war in Ukraine, one relationship has repeatedly drawn global attention, that between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Their latest meeting on August 15, 2025, at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska, sparked not only headlines but also deep unease among Trump's own Republican allies. While many offered praise for the symbolism of the talks, a quiet chorus of warnings has emerged, urging Trump not to give Putin what he wants. This tension highlights a central question. Can Trump navigate the delicate balance between ending a devastating war and avoiding concessions that could empower Russia's ambitions? Let's dive into the story. Trump, Putin, and the weight of history. The image of Donald Trump speaking with Vladimir Putin on the tarmac in Alaska carried symbolic weight far beyond the optics of two leaders exchanging words. For years, Trump has cultivated an unusually cordial tone toward Putin compared to past US presidents. His approach has often drawn criticism at home and abroad, where many see the Russian leader as a destabilizing force on the world stage. At the same time, Trump has positioned himself as someone who can broker deals where others have failed. His allies frame him as the deal maker who could potentially end one of the bloodiest conflicts of the 21st century. Yet behind the optimism, Republican lawmakers are increasingly aware of the risks. They know that a rushed agreement, one seen as tilted toward Russia, could reshape not just Ukraine's future but the credibility of American global leadership. It is worth remembering that moments like this are not just about personalities, they are about legacies. For Trump, the Alaska meeting is a chance to prove his critics wrong and establish himself as a statesman. For Putin, it is an opportunity to secure recognition for his military gains. History has repeatedly shown that when such high-stakes encounters occur, the balance of power can subtly shift with a single concession or phrase. Republicans, aware of this history, are signaling that the United States must tread carefully. For once something is given away, it is nearly impossible to reclaim. Praise wrapped in caution. Following the Alaska meeting, Republican lawmakers largely praised Trump's willingness to sit down with Putin and push for direct dialogue with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In their words, the effort to pursue peace was admirable. Yet, the compliments often carried a second layer, a warning. This pattern of praise wrapped in caution became evident in statements across television appearances, social media posts, and interviews. The underlying concern that Trump might offer concessions to Putin in exchange for a ceasefire, and concessions that could undermine Ukraine's sovereignty or embolden authoritarian regimes elsewhere. The careful wording is notable. Lawmakers who support Trump politically understand the importance of maintaining loyalty, but they also know their constituents are wary of appearing soft on Russia. As a result, their statements often begin with applause for Trump's initiative before transitioning into pointed reminders of the risks. This rhetorical balancing act allows them to avoid open confrontation with the president while still registering their unease. This approach reflects the broader tension within the Republican Party. How to align behind Trump without fully endorsing every element of his foreign policy. It is a political dance that underscores both Trump's influence over the party and the genuine strategic concerns about the US-Russia dynamic. Tom Tillis, a warning without re-election pressure. Perhaps the most direct voice came from Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina, who is not seeking re-election next year. Free from the pressures of campaigning, Tillis offered candid remarks on CBS Mornings. He argued that Putin's fear lies in the idea of Ukraine emerging as a thriving Western democracy, a model that challenges the Russian president's hold on power. Tillis cautioned that giving Putin even a modicum of a win would fuel his belief that authoritarian rule has a rightful place in the modern world. By framing the conflict not just as a territorial dispute, but as a battle between democracy and totalitarianism, Tillis underscored the ideological stakes. His comments cut through the more carefully worded statements of his colleagues. Without electoral consequences hanging over him, Tillis was able to speak with unusual frankness, painting Putin not just as a threat to Ukraine but as a symbol of the dangers facing democratic societies everywhere. His framing of the conflict as a clash of political systems echoed Cold War-era rhetoric, but it resonated in a world where authoritarianism has been on the rise. For Republicans still in office, Tillis's words serve as both a caution and a cover, an explicit reminder of what is at stake, articulated by someone free of political pressure. His remarks illustrate how much unease exists under the surface, even if many prefer to phrase their concerns in softer terms. Lindsey Graham, Land, Taiwan, and the Global Ripple Effect. Senator Lindsey Graham, a long-standing foreign policy voice within the GOP, offered another cautionary note. He focused particularly on the issue of land swaps, a euphemism for recognizing Russian control over territories seized in Ukraine. Graham's warning was simple but powerful. Don't hand Putin land through the force of arms. Speaking on Fox News, Graham drew a direct connection between Ukraine and Taiwan, arguing that rewarding Russia for aggression could embolden China to take similar steps in East Asia. His repeated refrain, "China is watching," reflected a broader strategic concern that decisions in Europe reverberate across the globe. The logic behind Graham's warning is rooted in deterrence theory. If aggressors see one country rewarded for force, others may conclude that aggression pays. For U.S. policymakers, this is about more than the Donbass or Crimea. It is about preserving norms that prevent wars of conquest from becoming acceptable once again. Graham's words remind audiences that peace in Ukraine, if achieved at the cost of Ukraine's sovereignty, may prove to be a fragile peace with global consequences. In this sense, Graham's statements serve both as advice to Trump and as a public reminder of the stakes. His warnings are not just about land swaps in Ukraine, they are about keeping the international system stable in the face of rising authoritarian pressures. Conservative media voices amplify the alarm. The conversation did not remain confined to Capitol Hill. Conservative media figures, who often shape Republican opinion, amplified the warnings. Mark Levin devoted significant airtime to describing Russia's territorial ambitions and invoked past failures such as the Budapest Memorandum, which failed to secure Ukraine's sovereignty. In the wake of new Russian offensives, Levin labeled Putin a genocidal maniac in a social media post. This language, unusually stark for Trump-friendly media, signaled the growing frustration with Moscow's continued aggression. Senator Roger Wicker seized upon Levin's remarks to appeal directly to Trump, framing the media host's words as a plea for vigilance. Putin lies and kills, Wicker emphasized, adding that Trump's leadership would be essential to uniting Ukraine, the U.S., and Europe against deception. What makes this significant is the alignment of media voices and lawmakers on the same theme. Putin cannot be trusted, and Trump must not underestimate him. Conservative media personalities often hold sway with Trump, who pays close attention to their broadcasts and commentary. By taking strong stances, they effectively send messages both to their audiences and to the president himself. This fusion of political and media messaging creates a chorus of caution. It demonstrates that concern about Trump's approach to Putin is not isolated. It is shared across different arenas of Republican influence: Cruz, Wilson, and the varied Republican voices. Other Republican figures offered their own nuanced takes. Senator Ted Cruz predicted that Trump would indeed land a peace deal, but stressed that it must be framed as a clear and discernible loss for Russia and Putin. In his view, any settlement that leaves Russia appearing victorious would be unacceptable. Representative Joe Wilson of South Carolina leaned into praise for Trump, portraying him as a leader who sees through Putin's deceptions. Yet, even his supportive remarks carried an undertone that Trump's role is to stand firm, not to bend. Wilson described a daily contrast: cordial conversations in the morning, followed by brutal Russian attacks in the afternoon. Representative Don Bacon of Nebraska, meanwhile, struck perhaps the most critical note. While supporting negotiations in principle, he warned that Trump's comments suggesting Ukraine could have peace tomorrow if they want sounded too much like capitulation. Bacon insisted that negotiations must proceed with moral clarity, recognizing that Russia started the war through a ruthless invasion. Together, these voices reflect the spectrum of Republican approaches, ranging from praise-heavy encouragement to frank skepticism. But beneath the differences lies a shared foundation: the belief that peace cannot come at the cost of rewarding aggression. Each Republican, in his own way, is urging Trump to stay vigilant, public opinion and the shadow of polls. While Republican lawmakers shape elite debate, public opinion also looms large. Polls consistently show that many Americans worry Trump is too favorable toward Putin. A recent Fox News poll indicated that 58% of Americans believed Putin had the upper hand going into the summit, compared to 35% who disagreed. Gallup surveys further revealed that 7 in 10 Americans were at least somewhat worried. A peace deal would tilt too far toward Russia. These findings underscore the political risk for Trump. Striking a deal that appears weak could damage not only U.S. credibility abroad, but also his standing at home. Public opinion matters because foreign policy is not conducted in a vacuum. For Trump, this means any peace deal must not only satisfy foreign partners, but also reassure American voters that U.S. interests are being safeguarded. The numbers suggest skepticism is widespread, cutting across partisan lines. Americans may be tired of war, but they also do not want to see democracy undermined by concessions to aggression. This creates a narrow path for Trump, one where success requires balancing international diplomacy with domestic expectations. The challenge of negotiating peace. Negotiating peace is never simple, but in Ukraine's case, it is particularly fraught. Any agreement requires grappling with concrete issues: territorial control, security guarantees, sanctions relief, and the fate of displaced populations. Each decision carries enormous implications. For Republicans wary of concessions, the challenge lies in defining what is acceptable. Would recognizing Russian control over certain areas amount to rewarding aggression? Would easing sanctions encourage further violations of international law? These are the questions quietly haunting lawmakers as Trump explores a possible deal. Peace talks often involve compromise, but here compromise risks rewarding the very aggression that sparked the war. This is why even Trump's allies, who often praise his disruptive style, are urging caution. They know the wrong concession could weaken Ukraine and embolden others to test international limits. Negotiations must be precise and enforceable. Symbolic gestures are not enough. For a deal to last, it must address causes and ensure both sides see benefits without undermining sovereignty. Striking that balance is one of the hardest tasks in diplomacy, and it now rests with Trump. Between opportunity and risk, Trump's pivotal test. The Alaska meeting was only the beginning of what could become a long process. For Trump, the challenge is navigating the razor's edge between opportunity and risk. On one side lies the possibility of ending a grinding conflict and claiming credit as a peacemaker. On the other lies the danger of granting Putin concessions that undercut U.S. interests and embolden authoritarian leaders. Republicans, for all their praise, are effectively urging Trump to remember that leadership requires not just diplomacy, but resilience. Their pleas reflect a recognition that this moment could define both his legacy and the future of U.S. foreign policy. This is not merely about one summit. It is about whether the United States projects strength and principle or enters a deal that undermines both. The test before Trump is monumental. Can he turn dialogue into durable peace without giving Moscow the upper hand? Success could mark him as a peacemaker. Failure could cast a long shadow on Ukraine and America's global role. The debate unfolding in Washington reveals just how delicate these negotiations are. If you found this analysis helpful and want to stay informed on these high-stakes developments, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future updates. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think is the right balance between peace and protecting Ukraine's sovereignty? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.